Hello everyone, Maurice and welcome to Tanks Invest, top of investing, finance, and financial development for today's Ethereum only. The investment topic today will be Ethereum ticker ETH. First, just want to say happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you have a great week, by the way. With respect to Ethereum, I'm recording at 7:40 a.m. on Eastern time. Currently trading at $3,117, down about 0.16% so far. It seems like we are kind of just normalizing on a sideways fashion right now, bouncing between the walls between the $3,000 mark and the 3,150 mark, right? And as of earlier, during the night when I was still dead asleep, Ethereum hit all the way to one time $3,188, trying to break to the next resistance level, which we've identified so far, which is technically 3,225. But obviously, we couldn't get there. But remember, the 3,225 is not a substantive level. The real level is actually all the way to the 3,385, which we have identified previously in the technical analysis, right? So it seems like we're struggling between the walls above 3,000, which is a substantial flat number of resistance that we've formed so far. And despite the I would say 15 days of consecutive surge days so far, normalizing on the sideways fashion is ideal. We do want to be hovering above the 3,000, right? Knowing the fact that that's a relatively substantive level, it seems like we are basically struggling around the consolidation zone, the 3,150, despite being a slightly low below. But we can adjust for that, knowing the fact that we've surged up for such a long time now. So I'm gonna go through technical analysis, in combinations with some of the news affectation we've been reading so far. In the past, I would say 24 hours so far. Let's talk about like just the last 12 hours so far. Those are more recent time frames, right? We have a couple of news that talks about obviously the crypto regulatory battles between the Feds and SEC versus obviously the overall crypto assets with respect to the revisions on the infrastructure build, with respect to the new crypto bill that's being led by Don Byers, and also with respect to obviously the Janet Yellen stablecoin initialization that she's been percolating on, working with a lot of the regulators on, and the most recent time frame with respect to SEC, talking about and Gary Gensler used a very negative verbiage, right? He called crypto like scam, fraud, or any criminal activities, if you may, right? So obviously, with those type of battle between the Feds, SEC, and the crypto assets as a whole, obviously can have some margin compression onto the surge or the potential surge that we are ideally want to get to, right? And then some other news that came out from Cointelegraph talking about, okay, so now we broke through 3,000. What's the next technical resistance level we should be leaping up to, right? Which we have been covering so far. Just so like you could take a look at what they're talking about. It's quite comparable to what we've been talking about already. And then Bazinga talks about with respect to the upgrades of this Ethereum 2.0, how will that be translating to the energy usage efficiencies, which based on the co-founder Vitalik, he talks about that with this new stage of 2.0 subsequently allow for efficiencies by 99%, which is obviously a great long-term value proposition improvement. Right, and then some other news, more of a regurgitation, talk about the, from Decrypt again. Ethereum burned about 30 million of Ethereum in the last 2 days after the transition to EIP 1559, which is logical with the supply and demand dynamics, which shifts over to create this imbalance, which is also one of the catalysts on driving the surge that we're seeing right now, right? On top of the institutional investors and the formal investors, right? So I'm gonna go through technical analysis to see how we're trending now, knowing that today is a Sunday. It is a weekday for some of the international folks right now already. But I'm gonna go through the technical analysis to see the psychology behind the charts right now. What's the momentum looking like right now? And what the levels we should be dollar cost averaging at, and how should we be risk mitigating going forward? So stay tuned, stick around, let's make some money. Moving on to technical analysis for Ethereum ticket ETH on recurrence of 7:45 a.m. on the Eastern time. Current trade like $3,104, down about 0.63% so far. Seems like we're just kind of trading on a sideways fashion, comparable to all the coins. We don't really have any specific news that's percolating so far. Most of them just are regurgitating news. That's just been sustaining. And right now we are basically hovering around the $3,150 level. We're basically $45 away. So technically you could say we're below it, but I was, just kind of give that benefits of the doubts that we are kind of hovering on the sideways fashion, knowing the fact that if you do the average, right, today's high was 3,188 and today's low was 3,083. Technically we're basically in the middle right now, right? So what's the trends going forward, right? So let's just take a look at the recap again historically, right? 15 days ago, or about 15 days ago, ever since the 20th, which is the B Word Summit, we got the Elon Musk, Cathie Wood, and the Jack Dorsey's confirmations on their long-term belief and the value proposition on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, and even Dogecoin, if you may, right? And subsequent to that, we had the JP Morgan news, the Goldman Sachs news on issuing offering to their private clients, to institutional clients, on some of the pseudo crypto asset ETFs, right? With respect to Grayscale Trust, and for both Bitcoin and Ethereum respectively, for both Ethereum Classic, but also Ethereum Basic as well, right? If you may, right? And ever since then, we had a lot more pause and media affectation that's been percolating. And then you see this mini red normalization candles here. It's mainly driven by the regulatory news. Obviously coming from Gary Gensler on screaming at crypto, calling it fraud, calling it scam, etc., etc. And also with respect to the infrastructure bill revision and Don Byers' very comprehensive 58 pages of crypto bill that he's issuing, which these are all drafts that needs to go through further revisions, and it takes a long time for the government officials to execute anything, because it goes through a lot of approvals and drafts, and especially with how dense the documents are, with obviously the revolutionary type of dynamics that we are also experiencing with respect to crypto assets as a whole. It can take a long time for the whole thing to actually come into fruition, right? So, but it's something we have to know, because that's a foreshadow thing, that if they try to enforce something that can be, with some sort of like tax implications or commission fee structure that could subsequently hinder our margins in a profitability perspective, that can obviously be detrimental to our profit, right? That's just a matter of fact. So right now, on a MACD perspective, we are still running very hot. We are very, very hot right now. You could see that the trends is comparable to the trends that we saw in the past, right? You could see it's almost matching, right? You could see we have some normalization. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see another green candle, like, if you try to match with the history, right? You see that small dip right here, right on the 6th, and then subsequently a surge, which is the surge that we're seeing right now, and then another one, right? And then we go pump up again. So we are basically at the late stage of thrill, and towards the early stage of euphoria at the moment, right? And once we get to euphoria, we should be seeing a mega sell-off from there, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if we actually reach all the way to the 3,400 for some reason, right? Because of some whale manipulations. I do understand some of the whales actually bought in when we hit the dip, right? Remember, see this mega green handle here? So they actually bought around like the 2,450 or 2,500 all the way to 2,700, right? So these are the cost average that they bought at. So they might want to chase us a little bit more to pump up even more. For them to dollar cost average, but then subsequently sell off, so they could make a relatively quick gain. But with the amount that they purchased, they could make a relatively seismic gains just from that manipulation front, right? So something to watch out for. With respect to our side, we are still overbought, but we are dipping right now, because obviously for the normalization that we're seeing today. In an ideal world without any well manipulations, I hope that we would just hover on a sideways fashion, right? And ideally just hovering the 3,150, right? And just static, right? But how likely is that going to happen? Because we saw the whale activities already, that the sell-off needs to happen. You know, it's a healthy way for you logically to oscillate on a regular fashion. You do not just have a rocket that goes up all the way in infinity, right? You need to normalize for you to correct. And then because the money has to come from somewhere, right? People needs to kind of recycle the monetary circulations. So something to be mindful of again, right? 3,150. But for me, I don't think I will be buying now, knowing the fact that we are really hot. It's basically screaming you buy at a premium right now. I'll just wait off and just stay cool as a cucumber. Stay until we come back down to 2,750, 2,450, and even like in my dream 2,150, somewhere anywhere around there, right? And that will be the ideal dollar cost average level for me, in my risk averse perspective. All right, just to recap our numbers and technical analysis, again, right, we are basically struggling between the levels of 3,225, which is technically not a substantive level. It's just a level of a slight consolidation that we formed in the past. The true level is 3,385, right? So we have a high likelihood of actually just normalizing, hovering on the sideways fashion, but we do have to understand that the whales did bought in around like the low 2,600 to 2,750. So if we buy now, we give them a lot of power to basically manipulate us, right? So if we continue to FOMO and surge up because of positive media affectation, because most people buy on feelings, and most people don't think logically either, that when they see it's green, they typically like to buy in because it's going up and away, right? And that will give the incentive to the whales to sell off from there. So ideally, I just want to weigh off and practice patience. So these are the levels I would be ideally buying at. Obviously 2,150, you basically crack through like 7 resistance levels. How likely is that? So it's not in the near term, but these are levels that you would ideally love to be getting in, right? And the risk decreases as you go, right? You could see that 2,750, the risk level is obviously not as optimal as 2,150, right? So hopefully this is understandable. These are just levels for reference for you. And with respect to 12 months price target, 20% corporate adoption, 9,800, 3.6 times your money from here. All right, so that's it for today. Respect my technical analysis on Ethereum ticket ETH. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your Sunday. And for those Sundays already ended, I know that different people in different international side of the world. Have a great rest of the day, and have a good Monday as well. Really appreciate you guys for the continued support and the positivity that I've been getting so far. You guys really are amazing. I don't know what I did to deserve all of this, such great friendships and just the support that I've been getting. Is truly motivational. You guys make me better, and I'll try to do better for you guys. But yeah, I'm just gonna be spending the rest of the day on Sunday working. I actually have meetings today for some reason, so I'm gonna be just putting my head down, churning away. But really appreciate you, and stay tuned for this coming up. Take care. Bye.